Hello friends, welcome to our 5th video in a series of videos about the lines of the human design profile. Every profile has 2 lines, and our next series will be about how the 2 lines interact. This first series is about the individual lines, and today we're going to get to talk about the 5th line profile, known as the heretic or the visionary leader. Okay, I'm Maggie Ostara. I am a human design expert. I'm a sovereignty mentor, and I'm delighted to get to share this information with you today. Whether you're a 5th line or you love one, it's really good to have this. And especially if you have any children or children in your life that are 5th lines, you're going to want to know about this. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Of all of the lines of the profile, I think the 5th lines have the biggest assignment in a certain way. So each one of the lines has superpowers and also has challenges or nemesises, right? They have what we might consider more positive qualities or more negative qualities, just like every archetype that's out there, right? Every archetype has, more positive and more negative qualities. And generally speaking, we would say that part of our evolutionary journey, right, is to be moving more from the more negative qualities into the more positive qualities. So that's part of our developmental process, right? But the 5th line's situation is particularly complex because its greatest superpower actually grows out of its greatest challenge. So let's go ahead and find out more about the 5th line. So the 5th line is called the heretic in traditional human design, or the visionary leader in quantum human design. And it was called the heretic. The poster child, if you will, for the 5th line is Galileo. So Galileo, as you know, probably changed our perception of ourselves as humanity, the perception of the earth, and our place in the cosmos, right? Extremely radical, said, no, the earth is not at the center of the universe. The sun is at the center of our solar system, right? And the earth revolves around that. But of course, Galileo was considered a heretic by the Catholic Church of his time, and was arrested, but then, died in his home because he was under house arrest until he died. And so here he was a visionary leader. He could really see what was being revealed at that time, but the culture wasn't really ready to receive it. So this is potentially sometimes the challenges that visionary leaders have, right? Is that they're so far ahead of their time. Other people don't necessarily know how to digest what it is that they're recommending. But our 5th lines do have this ability to kind of see things differently, help us to shift our perspective, help us to have a vision that is more empowering for us. So that's definitely a quality of the 5th line, which is why they've also been renamed the visionary leader. So that 5th line absolutely has the ability to be that visionary leader, to be somebody who is helping us lead us into a more whole view of what is actually true in our world and what it potentially can become true. So being a visionary leader would be a big assignment for anyone, right? I mean, the idea of being a visionary leader is a big assignment. But for the 5th line, they have a particular aspect to their character, which makes it even more complex and is part of really the power that they have to help us to heal and to grow and to understand ourselves better. So the 5th line has what's known as a projection field. So 5th lines are charismatic, they're attractive, they're compelling. A lot of times people want to be with them. They're kind of that person. A lot of times it sort of feels like people are swarming around. It's like bees to honey, right? Or bees to a really juicy flower. And they're all there going, oh, this is really yummy here, right? So 5th lines can be like that. They tend to draw people towards them. And sometimes 5th lines kind of get seduced by that themselves, and then they utilize that and seduce other people and bring them in. And, if they are coming from the highest light, right, they will do that for that person's good. But sometimes 5th line can get caught in their own charisma a little bit and can use it in a little bit of a shadow way. So you definitely want to watch out for that. But the fifth line is this kind of charismatic, appealing kind of a person, and people do want to be around them. And the thing is that people tend to project their needs and their desires onto the fifth line. So they see that person as somebody who can heal them, who can guide them, who can tell them who they are and what they should do, and can take the struggle out of their lives. This is why sometimes the fifth line is known as the savior, which is that other side of the heretic, right? Which is they're here to save me. And so then people will project their needs onto the fifth line. But the fifth line may not have anything to do with that person's needs. It's not personal, right? It's something that's coming at them, that is coming from those people. That's why we call it a projection field. And so this can be really challenging for the fifth line, because here they are, they're moving through life being who they are, and people are showing up and expecting them to be able to treat them in a certain way, which they may never have anticipated or desired or even understood what all that projection is about. So that's where things can really get murky for your fifth line. Now imagine for a moment your fifth line child, right? Small person, charismatic. Everybody loves this person, right? They're just like, look at this little, yummy little person. But then they start projecting their needs onto that person. And if this child has a narcissistic parent or just a self-absorbed parent, somebody who is just not aware of really their child as a separate being, can be projecting their needs and their desires onto their child. And what does the child know? It's like, I don't know. I'm just showing up, and my mother is saying, I'm here to do this for her. My father is saying, I'm here to do this for them. So what happens to your fifth line child, right? Is they become a people pleaser or a peacemaker. A lot of times it's like, oh, okay, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'll do. Tell me whatever it is that you want me to do. Or they become avoidant. It's like, oh no, people are projecting onto me. I'm going to see how scarce I can get. I'm either going to physically leave if I can, although for kids, a lot of times it's hard. Or I'm going to energetically leave. I'm going to dissociate. I'm going to give you a persona, right? I'm going to project an identity from myself out towards the people who are projecting onto me. And they're not going to ever really get the real me. The real me is safe inside here. But, I'm projecting out to them the identity that they want to see. So this is something that happens for fifth line kids a lot, and they don't even realize it's going on. And, their parents don't realize what's going on either. It's not like their parents, are thinking, I'm going to project my needs onto my child. This is just how energy works. And when you don't know that this is what's happening, it can be very confusing. So a lot of time for that fifth line child, they do grow up masking or creating personas or identities for different people or different situations so that they can have some distance from those projections that are coming at them. But the challenge is that they might not really know who they are because they're spending so much of their energy trying to protect themselves from other people's projections onto them that they lose who they are, or they may never really develop a deep sense of self. So this can definitely be a challenge for the fifth line child. And then you can imagine as somebody is growing up and they continue to be getting a lot of attention from other people. Sometimes people, like I said, learn to manipulate that, right? Where they say, sure, you can project your needs onto me and then I'm going to get some good stuff from you. It can become manipulative, right? Or coercive to a degree. Could be kind of subterranean, but it definitely can happen. But if the fifth line is really more evolved and really kind of starts to understand what's going on, then they can shift into one of their greatest superpowers. Because the fifth line can become what's known as the karmic mirror. And this is where that visionary leader energy really emerges kind of in a personal development way. So imagine that somebody is projecting their needs onto you, right? If you can then just reflect back to them what it is that they're saying. So like if, for example, says, but I really need you to help me with this. Then you could say, oh, you're feeling like you really need some help with that. Yeah, I really need some help. And I was hoping you would help me. Say, well, I could potentially, maybe, but maybe I'm not the best person. Maybe this is something you want to work on for yourself. What is it that you're really feeling that you need? So it's like mirroring back to that person so that they can start to realize that they are projecting, and they start to take more individual personal responsibility for whatever it is that's coming up that they're projecting out onto the fifth line, right? And this is where the really adept fifth line, right? Somebody who has grown up and realized that they need to have good boundaries with the people around them, right? Because the earlier thing I was talking about, the fifth line child becomes that people pleaser, right? They can not really have boundaries because they're like, oh no, I'm merged with these other people. What is it that I need to do? Whereas the avoidant can end up with so strong boundaries, they don't really relate to people. They can have a hard time with intimacy because their boundaries are so strong. But when you've evolved enough so that you really are in that kind of visionary leader energy, you don't have to have, like castle walls around you as your boundaries. You can just be clear about what's mine and what's not mine. And so that you can be giving that back to somebody, mirroring it back to them and saying, that isn't really mine. That's really yours. That's the kind of underlying message, right? This isn't mine. This is yours. And so if you're somebody who works with clients, right, this is a really great skill to have, is to be able to keep handing back to that person so that they are empowered rather than get them trying to give you their power, right? Which is basically when somebody says, you're here to save me, they're trying to give you their power. They're saying, here, take this. I don't really have my own power. Can you do it for me? But when that visionary leader can be like, well, honey, I think you need that power for yourself. Like, why don't you take that back in and see what that's about for you? And sometimes that person can facilitate that process, right? Depending on what their role is with somebody, right? So that you can facilitate that. But it's not your responsibility. So if you're a fifth line watching this, it's not your responsibility to take care of everybody else's needs, even though they project those onto you. But this is a real opportunity for you, for your own growth and development, to be able to recognize, oh, so-and-so is coming to me with a challenge again, right? How can I support them to work with their own challenge more effectively rather than coming to me to try to solve it? So this is one of the reasons that the fifth line has such a big assignment, right? Is that the superpower that they have of being the karmic mirror grows out of their recognition of the projection field. Like when they realize that that's happening and it's not personal, it's not really about them at all. It's really about the other person. When they realize that, then they can step into that role of the karmic mirror. But it has to grow out of the realization of the projection field. So it's a big assignment. It's complex. Like you really have to be doing your work in order to understand that, and then to really, really be doing your work if you're going to go to the next level to help people to really take back their own power and then to learn how to work with their own challenges themselves. Now, the fifth line does have an important role in helping us to understand personal sovereignty, because I think this process of being projected upon and then having boundaries and getting clear about what's mine and what's not is something we all go through, right? For the fifth line, it's extreme. Right? It's really extreme, but we all go through this process where we realize either, wow, I'm projecting some of my stuff onto that person, or I'm feeling really projected upon, right? There's something coming at me that doesn't feel like me at all. So we all experience that to a degree. And a big piece of becoming sovereign is knowing, well, what is mine and what isn't mine, right? What are my emotions? Is that somebody else's emotions? Is this my belief system, or is that somebody else's belief system? Is this my responsibility, or is that somebody else's responsibility? And getting clarity about that, because we've been so conditioned in general to be so entangled with each other and so kind of merged with each other that a lot of times we don't have clarity about what's mine and what's not mine. Now, for you parents out there, right, when our kids are little, of course, they are more enmeshed with us and we are more entangled. But it's our role as parents to try to help them not be too enmeshed. We do take more responsibility for their well-being. We do take more responsibility for helping them learn how to, regulate their nervous system when they get really, upset and things like that. Absolutely, we do. But in the maturation process, right, ideally, the child learns how to do that more and more from themselves. And so you can imagine how incredibly important this is for the parents of a fifth line child, is to help that fifth line child develop their own sovereignty by realizing that they are operating inside of a projection field and that their highest development is to learn how to be that karmic mirror. But for all of us, we can learn to realize when things are being projected upon us. And also, honestly, when we're projecting onto other people. And if we realize we're doing it, to be like, wait a minute, let me come back. Let me get back in my own lane and let me work with whatever's going on in me and not think that I've got to turn to that person as a savior for me. But then also, if you see it coming at you, that you can be like, oh, that person's kind of caught in a projection field. They may not even realize what they're doing. But what I can do is gently say, that's not really mine to take care of. I think that's more yours. And just remember, nobody can give something to you unless you are willing to receive it. The thing is that we have tended to be so conditioned to believe that other people's feelings are our responsibility, that we do tend to just pick it up and take it as if it were our own. But our path to sovereignty includes really good boundaries, but boundaries that are not, like I said, castle walls. They're ones that are malleable and soft and where you can still feel people, you can develop intimacy, but you're also really clear, this is mine, this is not mine. Now, for your fifth line woman at midlife, she may just be coming to realize that she is a fifth line. Because a lot of times people do come to human design when they are in their 40s or their 50s, because at that time they're starting to go, wait a minute, I really dedicated to my life going a certain way. And now it's not feeding me or serving me or fueling me or satisfying me the way that I thought it would or the way that it once did. And so a lot of times people turn to human design at that time. I have many midlife women who come to me for readings and come and do my programs and so on, because it's a time when they're starting to really break down some of their commitments to living in a way that isn't suiting them anymore. So if you're a midlife woman, you realize that you're a fifth line. I've done many readings for fifth line women who are like, oh my God, no wonder people have been treating me the way that they do. No wonder that, everybody in my life expects me to be the one who's going to take care of things, right? No wonder. And it can be a huge relief at that point to realize that it has to do with how energy works. It's not because you're responsible for everybody. It's not because unless you are, but it's not because you're cultivating the understanding that you're there for everyone, right? It's not about that. It's much more just about the kind of quality of energy that you have, which then invites you to create those better boundaries and to be discerning about, okay, what's mine, what's not mine. I will take care of this. I won't take care of this. I'm thinking of a few different women in the Sovereign Sisterhood, which is my, supportive ecosystem for women awakening at midlife. And they've been really working on their boundaries. They've been really working on saying to some of the key people in their lives, that is not my responsibility. I am not going to keep helping you with that. It's not mine. It's yours. And so I know creating boundaries for a lot of us can be challenging, but it's really, really worth it, because that's how each one of us becomes more aware of what our true responsibility is. And when we know what that is and we stand strong in it, we also are more at choice when we decide to do more for other people. Because we're doing it from a place of sovereignty. We're doing it from a place of more strength and stamina and clarity on the inside, so that we can be like, okay, yeah, but I do want to help in this situation. Because realizing that there's a projection field and being the karmic mirror doesn't mean you never help anybody, right? But you're discerning about it. And you're not just doing it because it seems like it's coming at you. You're really discerning about it, but you want to be doing it from a place where you're really resourced, not where you're scrambling, trying to make sure that everybody's okay so that you can finally relax. And mirroring back to people what it is that they say that they really want from you is one of the ways to create boundaries. It's a way of, just kind of deflecting it rather than having it come in and you take it on and you're like, oh gosh, what am I going to do about this? You're like, no, that's not mine. Right? I'm just mirroring it back. It's like you become kind of Teflon, right? I always like that metaphor of, water off a duck's back, right? Because water doesn't penetrate their wings, right? Because that's how they get to stay dry, even though they're diving around in the water. So you can think of it that way too. It's just like, it doesn't penetrate. It doesn't come in. It's not about me. So as I said, fifth lines have a big assignment. It is a big assignment. And the fifth lines are also some of the most powerful people when they really get this developmental process and when they do know how to stand strong and clear without any manipulation or coercion or seductive energy around the fact that they are charismatic and they are someone that other people want to be around. Like they don't work it for their own gain. You know what I mean? Like when they evolve out of that, but then they also realize, yes, there's a projection field and I'm going to use that in a way to help other people grow and evolve, if they're ready when they come to me. And so that fifth line really can become a huge, positive influence in any community because they do have that really insightful ability to see what's going on for other people. I do encourage you to watch all of the videos in this series. I will put the link for it at the end of the video so you can go. There'll be a playlist on profiles. And I just encourage you to learn about all of them because you want to know also about the two lines of your profile, but also to know about the people in your life. Because as you can see, if you know you have a fifth line in your life, you might really treat them differently and you might become aware of ways that you project onto them that you didn't even know before, right? So all of the different profiles, all the different lines have different superpowers. They also have nemesis. When we understand these things about each other, we can support each other and take things less personally, right? Realize it's not a personal thing. It's about how energy operates. And that is very liberating for all of us. So I would highly encourage that you go and check that out at the end of the video. There's also at the end of the video will be a course on your getting started with human design course. And so if you're newer to human design, you can go through and see how to read a chart. What are all the different parts of the chart? Where does the chart come from? You can learn about all of the different types, the strategies, the authorities, and now the profiles are in their own playlist because there's so many of them. But you can get that really strong foundation in human design, if you want to, by going just through those two different playlists, which are courses on my YouTube channel. And then, of course, I also have a free human design chart that you can get on my website, which also will give you your mandala. And the mandala is so beautiful and it's really great. It will transmit to you. So if you get it and you print it out, you put it in your altar, or put it in your journal, and just let yourself to absorb it. So I'll put the link for that also down below and at the end of the video too. The human design chart is totally free, and I encourage you to go and dive into some of these courses because it will really give you a beautiful foundation from which you can explore the rest of the wonderful world of human design. So many blessings, much love. Bye for now.